She pretended to be blind for 7 years, until the Alpha King discovered what changed everything. Most blind women navigate the world by touch and memory alone. But Alice Stone navigated it by something far more dangerous: sight that revealed the invisible, and a secret that could burn kingdoms to ash. They say blindness is darkness, but Alice Stone's darkness held more light than the world could bear, a sight so rare, so powerful, that she buried it beneath 7 years of lies just to survive. Before you learn why Alice chose 7 years of darkness, hit subscribe to uncover the truth. Also download your free guide, Her Husband Humiliated Her Because of Infertility, until the Alpha King marked her, by clicking the link in the pinned comment. And don't forget to comment where you are watching from Chapter 1. The Woman Who Couldn't Be Seen. The morning corridors of Alpha King Promise Gordon's fortress were alive with the bustle of servants preparing for the day. Alice moved through them with practiced uncertainty, her white cane tapping a rhythm against cold stone floors. Tap. Pause. Shuffle, tap, das all tap. Each movement calculated to perfection, each hesitation placed exactly where a truly blind woman would falter. "Good morning, Alice," called Marta, hurrying past with an armful of linens. Alice tilted her head toward the voice, her milky eyes unfocused, unseeing. "Morning," she replied softly. Letting her cane drift slightly to the left as if uncertain of her surroundings, Marta didn't pause. No one ever did. This was Alice's greatest magic, not the gift that thrummed beneath her skin, but the art of being invisible. 7 years of perfecting the performance of helplessness had made her a ghost in the fortress, a shadow that moved unnoticed through halls and chambers. The servants pitied her. The nobles looked through her. The king? He had never truly looked at her at all. Alone in the storage chamber near the kitchens, Alice's eyes transformed. The milky cloud dissolved, revealing irises that blazed with crystalline clarity. Behind the stone walls, she perceived what others could not: the translucent forms that lingered in the fortress's bones. A woman in a gray dress, forever bound to the corner where she'd taken her last breath centuries ago. The shadow chains of ancient curses woven through the mortar between stones. Protective wards, glowing like silver thread, that Promise's ancestors had woven into every brick to keep darker things at bay. She touched one of the chains binding the spirit woman to this place. The ethereal cord burned beneath her fingertips, not with heat, but with recognition. Her bloodline gift singing to magic was understood instinctively. In that touch was knowledge. This woman had been a servant once, like Alice. This woman had loved someone she could never have. This woman had been trapped. "Not me," Alice thought fiercely, pulling her hand back. "I won't be trapped like this." But she would. She already was. The memory rose unbidden. 7 years dissolving into 2 decades of running. She'd been 17 when the collectors found her family. Young enough that her gift was still raw, still developing, still visible to those who knew how to look. The collectors always knew how to look. A spirit walker, their leader had breathed when he caught sight of her eyes glowing in the darkness. Pure bloodline, untainted. She'll bring a fortune. Her parents had hidden her in the cellar while they fought. Alice had heard everything: the screams, the crash of spellfire, the terrible silence that followed. When the hunters finally found her cowering between wine casks, she made a choice in that moment of desperation. If she was valuable for her sight, she would become worthless by abandoning it. She'd closed her eyes that night and hadn't truly opened them for a year, training herself to move as if blind. When the collectors grew bored with a servant girl who couldn't see and sold her cheap, she'd slipped away into the wilderness, eventually finding her way to Promise's kingdom where no one knew her name, her bloodline, or the power that burned silently beneath her skin. 7 years later, and the performance was flawless. So flawless that sometimes Alice forgot it was a performance at all. The sound of footsteps pulled her from the memory. Rapid, authoritative, deliberate. Alice's breath caught as she recognized them, the weight and cadence unmistakable even after years of hearing him move through the fortress. The king. She forced her eyes back to their milky, clouded state just as he rounded the corner into the storage chamber. Her wolf, restless and rebellious as always when he was near, pressed urgently against her thoughts. "Mate," it whispered. "Ours. Why do we hide from ours?" "Silence," she commanded it, though her heart thundered against her ribs. Promise appeared in the doorway, his dark hair tousled as if he'd been running his hands through it in frustration. The fur-lined cloak draped across his shoulders caught the morning light, and his amber eyes, eyes that saw everything, swept past Alice without truly registering her presence. "I need supplies," he said to the air, not to her. "We're mobilizing the Northern Patrol. There's been unusual activity at the borderlands." "Of course, Your Majesty," Alice replied in her small, soft voice, the one that drew no attention. The one that made her disappear. He left as quickly as he'd come, and Alice stood alone among the spirits and shadows, listening to servants gossip in the hallway about riders bringing strange reports from the edges of the kingdom. Trouble was stirring. Change was coming. And Alice Stone, the woman who couldn't be seen, was about to discover that 7 years of hiding wasn't nearly long enough. Chapter 2. The King's Restless Wolf. The war room of Promise Gordon's fortress reeked of smoke and leather. The heavy oak table buried beneath maps marked with red ink, the language of danger. Promise stood at the head of it, his broad shoulders tense beneath his black tunic, studying the reports that had arrived before dawn. Unusual activity. That was how his scouts described it. But Promise had learned long ago that unusual often meant catastrophe in the making. "The patrols report movement we can't identify," said General Thorne, his grizzled commander, pointing to the northern borderlands. "Not quite shifter, not quite human. The tracks disappear and reappear miles apart, as if whatever's out there doesn't move like anything we've encountered." Lord Castellan stood to the right, his expression grave but controlled. He was a handsome man, fine-featured, ambitious, the kind of noble who made allies easily. "Perhaps it's nothing more than roaming bandits, sire. We've dealt with worse." "Bandits don't move like ghosts," Promise said quietly, but the edge in his voice made everyone in the room straighten. His wolf was pacing inside him, restless and agitated in a way that had nothing to do with the borderland threats. Something else was wrong, something inside the fortress walls. "Increase patrols," he commanded, "and I want the garrison doubled at all entry points." The meeting dispersed, but Promise's unease only deepened. He left the war room and moved through the corridors, his boots echoing against stone when he caught it, a scent that stopped him dead. Something warm, like honey and starlight, laced with wildflowers that shouldn't grow in winter. "Mate." His wolf slammed against his skin from the inside, desperate and demanding. "Ours." "Where?" "Find ours." "Control yourself," Promise muttered under his breath, running a hand through his dark hair in frustration. He'd ruled this kingdom for 15 years without distraction, without the complications of a mate bond. His wolf had been patient, oddly so, but lately, for the past weeks, the past months, it had grown increasingly feral, pulling him towards something he couldn't name. The scent came again, fading. He followed it instinctively, moving deeper into the fortress, until he nearly collided with a servant in the hallway. She stumbled backward with a soft cry, her white cane clattering to the stone floor. Promise reached out to steady her, his hand brushing her arm, and his entire body went rigid. The servant girl. The blind one. "Forgive me, Your Majesty," she whispered, her voice small and trembling as she bent to retrieve her cane. Her milky eyes were fixed downward, unfocused, but in that briefest moment of contact, his wolf had roared one word that transcended every rational thought. "Mate." "Are you well?" he asked, hearing the strange roughness in his own voice. "Yes, sire, I'm well. I didn't see you." She said it perfectly, the answer a blind servant would give. She moved past him with careful, measured steps, and Promise watched her go, his wolf howling inside him with a need so primal it nearly brought him to his knees. That night, unable to sleep, Promise found himself drawn to the fortress library. The great arched chamber was silent, illuminated only by moonlight through high windows. He moved between the shelves aimlessly, searching for something to quiet his mind, when he saw her. The blind servant stood motionless before a wall of ancient texts, her head tilted at an angle that suggested intense concentration. But it was her eyes that froze promise in place. Even in the darkness, even from across the room, he could see them gleaming, not with blindness, but with something else, something that looked disturbingly like sight. She was reading, not with her fingers, but simply standing there, absorbing words that glowed faintly with symbols he'd never learned to decipher. Spirit language, the ancient tongue of the realms his family had protected for generations. Before he could move, she sensed him. Her head snapped around, her eyes widening, clear and brilliant for just a moment, before panic flooded her features. She vanished into the shadows between the shelves like a ghost. Promise stood alone in the library, his heart thundering, his wolf pacing frantically inside him. Something was deeply, fundamentally wrong. And whatever that blind servant was hiding, it was connected to the mysterious threats at his borders and to the inexplicable pull his wolf had fought for 7 years. The next morning, Castellan approached him privately in the corridor. "Sire, I thought you should know," the commander said quietly. "I've noticed unusual activities. There are patterns that suggest someone within the fortress may be communicating with the outside threat." Promise's blood ran cold. "Show me." As they walked, one thought consumed him. The blind servant girl. The one who could see. The one his wolf claimed as mate. And suddenly, all the pieces began to fit together. A picture of danger he couldn't yet fully see, but one that was closing in from all direction. Chapter 3. The Hunters Arrive. The night air beyond the fortress walls smelled of frost and iron. Beneath a crooked birch, cloaked figures crouched low, their whispers sharp as broken glass. 5 of them, rogues trained to track, to kill, and to vanish. Their leader, a scarred man known only as Ravel, pressed a finger to the dirt and traced a crude outline of the fortress. "She's in there," he muttered. "The Spirit Walker. Our orders are clear, bring her breathing, but not unharmed." A woman at his side, her left eye clouded white, tilted her head. "Do we know what she looks like?" Ravel's mouth twitched. "A servant, a nobody. The Lord's household hides her well, but our man inside says she shines when the spirits stir." Their laughter was hollow, echoing briefly before dying in the cold. When they rose, the forest seemed to shudder. Somewhere deep within the walls, something ancient stirred awake, sensing them before any human eye could. Castellan's hands trembled slightly as he poured wine into 2 cups. Across from him, in the shadows of the old armory, Ravel waited, his face half concealed by the hood. "The Eastern Wall Patrol shifts every 3rd bell," Castellan whispered, glancing toward the door. "You'll have 15 minutes before they loop back." "And the girl?" Ravel asked. "She works in the kitchen. You'll know her by the way the air bends around her. The spirits, they like her too much." Ravel leaned closer, the faintest smile playing on his lips. "You sound afraid." "I'm cautious," Castellan hissed. "If Promise suspects." "Promise is a soldier," Ravel cut in. "He bleeds, he sleeps, he trusts too easily. You'll get your gold, Castellan. Just make sure she's alone when we come." When Ravel left, Castellan remained in the dark, his heart hammering. The air felt heavy, as if unseen eyes lingered in the corners. He turned, but no one was there. Only the faint, whispering rustle of the spirits Alice sometimes spoke of. Alice woke up with a start. Her room felt colder than it should have been. The candle by her bedside guttered violently, its flame shrinking to a sickly blue. In the reflection of the window, faint shapes moved, spirits twisting in distress, their outlines rippling like smoke. Something was wrong. She rose, clutching her shawl, and peered through the window toward the outer gates. A thin veil of mist clung to the ramparts, but beneath it, she saw motion. Shadows moving against the flow of the night, their energy sharp and jagged, unlike anything within the fortress. She pressed her palm against the glass. The spirits brushed against her skin in warning. Hunters. By dawn, Promise had doubled the guard. His voice was low, clipped, controlled, but beneath the command, unease bled through. "We've had disturbances on the east wall," he said to his captains. "Nothing visible, but the sentries feel watched. No one leaves the gates after dusk." When the meeting ended, Promise lingered alone in the hall, staring at the flicker of the hearth. He couldn't name the feeling gnawing at him. Since Alice's arrival, the fortress no longer felt like his own. The air seemed to pulse differently, as if something alive watched him from within the walls, and yet he couldn't bring himself to send her away. That evening, Alice served him in silence. The dining hall was near empty, the candlelight glancing off Promise's armor. He watched her every move, the tilt of her head, the tremor in her hand when she set his cup down. "Are you afraid of me, Alice?" he asked suddenly. She froze. "No, my lord." "Then why do you shake?" She forced a smile, but the candlelight betrayed her pallor. The spirits at the edges of the room hummed uneasily, and Promise, though he could not hear them, felt the pressure of something unseen. He dismissed her quickly, but his gaze followed her until the door closed. Later that night, Alice passed through the lower corridors and heard voices, low, urgent. She crept closer, pressing herself against the stone. Castellan's tone was sharp, desperate. "She's stronger than they said. The spirits favor her. She might not even be human." "Then our timing must be perfect," a rough voice replied. "Tomorrow before dusk, tell your lord whatever you must to keep her near the east wall." Alice's blood ran cold. She stepped back too quickly, and a loose stone shifted beneath her foot. The voices stopped. "Who's there?" She fled. From the upper corridor, Promise caught sight of movement, her figure slipping through the moonlight like a wraith. Something compelled him to follow. Down the spiral stairs, past the chapel, into the servants' wing. Her steps were silent, purposeful, not at all like a frightened girl's. When she stopped at the courtyard arch, the wind caught her shawl, and for an instant, her outline flickered, light bending subtly around her, the air shimmering as if it bowed to her presence. Promise's breath caught. "Alice?" he whispered. She turned, eyes wide, glowing faintly with reflected starlight, and in that moment, he understood why the air in the fortress had changed. She wasn't merely a servant. She was what the hunters were coming for. To be continued. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notification for part 2. Don't forget to share this video with someone today. Lastly, download your free ebook titled "Her Husband Humiliated Her Because of Infertility Until the Alpha King Marked Her" by clicking the link in the pinned comment.